Camille Saint-Saëns bears a name blessed and kissed by divine grace from heaven. He stood as an erudite polymath, towering far above his contemporaries, yet plunged into the dark abyss of unbearable grief after losing his beloved children at the very height of his glory. Tonight let us follow in his footsteps, traveling from the elegant concert halls of Paris to the boundless golden sands of North Africa, and listen closely to the hidden stories of farewell, loss, and spiritual rebirth concealed behind the quiet resonance of piano keys. The world remembers only the holy graceful swan depicted immortalized in music by Camille Saint-Saëns, yet few have ever seen the haggard, empty, hollow gaze left in his eyes after losing two of his precious children within merely 6 short weeks. Behind that shocking, sensational breakdown of his marriage lay the most private, desperate despair hidden deep within the heart of a grieving father. Accompanied by the soft, warm glow of the burning hearth, we step together into the real-life journey of this towering master of French music. The entire life of Camille Saint-Saëns unfolds as a long, endless journey of deliberate escape and quiet wandering. At the peak of his artistic fame and social prestige, he chose to abandon his renowned identity, live under an assumed name, and vanish silently into the distant dust of foreign lands. Was it the relentless, crushing pressure of cruel fate, or his inner longing for spiritual redemption that drove him to prefer living as a wandering, anonymous stranger far from his homeland? The night has grown deep and still. Settle yourself quietly and listen to the echoing tale of genius, destiny, and overwhelming tragedy woven through his lifetime. In the bleak, sorrowful autumn of 1881, Camille Saint-Saëns, the greatest musical genius France had ever known, suddenly vanished completely from the sight and memory of everyone around him. He left only a few brief, cold lines scrawled upon a note inside his hotel room, then disappeared without trace, leaving all who knew him uncertain of whether he was alive or gone forever. Dubbed the natural successor to Mozart, he stood firmly at the absolute peak of his career, possessing fame, wealth, social prestige, and every worldly blessing any mortal could ever desire. Yet this favored child of heaven endured an unspeakable family tragedy, brutal enough to shatter any human soul, losing 2 children in the span of just 6 short weeks. Tonight, accompanied by the softly flickering glow of the hearth, we walk fully into the untold life of this remarkable soul. Through this tranquil tale you need not strive to memorize. Beyond his identity as a legendary composer, Saint-Saëns was also a gifted poet. An avid archaeologist, a passionate astronomer, and a meticulous mathematician, he was a brave spiritual warrior striving to combat inner emptiness and existential nihilism through boundless knowledge and relentless learning. Yet beneath the cruel, crushing blow of fate, he chose a path of self-imposed exile and desperate escape. Close your eyes and let us journey back to that distant era, woven together by the soft light and shadow of Paris and the endless golden dust of North Africa, to feel the profound, quiet solitude hidden behind the lonely, graceful spirit of that solitary swan. The thread of Camille Saint-Saëns' fate was torn open, leaving an eternal bleeding scar. In the spring of 1878 he delayed stepping into marriage until his 30th year, wedding Marie, a young woman 20 years his junior, a union that should have opened a hopeful brand new chapter of life. Yet Saint-Saëns possessed an overly sensitive personality, shaped by an overbearing, suffocating mother whose dominating influence erected an invisible emotional wall forever separating him from his young wife. No ominous warning preceded the day disaster struck. His eldest son André stumbled dangerously close to the 4th floor window, lost balance, and fell crashing down onto the cold stone street below. When Saint-Saëns rushed home, he found his wife collapsed in paralyzing grief, overwhelmed by shock and sorrow, and faced the unimaginable, desolate future no father could ever bear. If this overwhelming sorrow was already unbearable, the misfortune that followed felt absurd, almost unreal. Only 6 short weeks later their second young son passed away silently in his cradle, falling victim to a sudden violent illness. 6 weeks, 2 precious innocent lives wiped away forever. Saint-Saëns' entire family burned to ashes and faded into cold emptiness. In less than 2 months' time he did not break down into loud weeping and hysterical grief like ordinary people, instead sinking into an unnerving state of grim calm and lifeless stillness. He shut himself away inside his music room, letting his fingers race frantically across the piano keyboard, as if pouring all his paternal love, kinship, and heartbreak into cold, flowing musical phrases. Yet the emotional atmosphere between him and Marie turned icy and stagnant. Every fleeting glance they exchanged served only as a painful reminder of the irreparable tragedy they could never undo. People often labeled Camille Saint-Saëns as a cold, detached genius for continuing to attend academic conferences, artistic gatherings, and public events at an undiminished frequency even after the devastating loss of his children. Beyond composing timeless musical masterpieces, he delved deeply into the study of ancient Greek drama, measured the orbital paths of distant stars, and even published rigorous academic papers on archaeological excavation and historical research to his contemporaries. This Relentless pursuit of endless knowledge seemed an act of arrogant pride, yet in truth it was his only raw instinct for survival. He forced his mind to remain occupied and overloaded every single moment of every day. Only in this way could he keep the haunting images of his departed children from invading his dreams. In the quiet loneliness of night, the emotional rift between him and his wife Marie grew far too wide ever to be mended. Saint-Saëns could never forgive Marie for what he perceived as careless negligence that led to André's fatal fall. Though he never openly blamed or criticized her publicly, his cold, silent estrangement cut far deeper than any harsh, angry accusation. While vacationing together in Labor in 1881, Saint-Saëns left a short farewell letter upon the hotel dining table, then walked resolutely away, vanishing into the pouring rainy night. He took no valuable possessions with him and did not even pause to embrace his wife one final time in bidding farewell. For more than 40 years afterward he never laid eyes upon the woman he had once taken as his spouse. He chose this decisive, ruthless way to sever the last remaining bond connecting him to the traditional family ethics and social expectations of French society. He began to cherish the liberating freedom of living in complete anonymity, adopting the simple alias Mr. Saint Max and boarding a ship alone, setting sail toward distant, unknown lands far from home. The atmosphere of his native France grew stifling, suffocating and unbearable for Saint-Saëns' wandering soul, so he turned his gaze across the vast sea toward Algeria. On the North African coast there were no bustling Parisian social seasons, no quiet whispered gossip surrounding his unspeakable grief over losing his children, only endless rolling golden desert sands and exotic melodic tones drifting on the wind. He dressed himself in the traditional flowing robes of local residents, blending quietly into crowded market streets, staying inside simple humble inns, listening intently to the unique enchanting modes and rhythms of traditional Arabian music. Immersed deeply in this rich exotic cultural atmosphere, he created some of the most mesmerizing, enchanting works of his lifetime, including his dreamlike, haunting Fifth Piano Concerto. He wove the shimmering, rippling light of the Nile River and the dry, scorching wind of the Sahara Desert into every delicate musical note. As night fell he would set up his astronomical telescope, gazing up into the crystal-clear, unobscured North African sky, searching for the distant stars he had named and catalogued himself. To him the boundless, silent universe was far more trustworthy than the tangled, complicated nature of human relationships. Those eternal, revolving celestial bodies never betrayed, never suffered and never shed tears, yet running away could never serve as a permanent final escape. A vague, lingering sense of professional mission and artistic duty would always draw him back to Paris, the glorious city he loved deeply yet also resented bitterly. He became a living contradiction, a steady pendulum swinging endlessly between extreme scholarly rationality and the raw emotional longing of inner escape. He began accepting performance invitations from across the globe, traveling extensively across America, South America and every corner of the known world. He seemed to race against the ticking passage of time, determined to wander and explore every untouched corner of the planet before his own life drew to a close. In his later declining years, Camille Saint-Saëns evolved into an unshakable, monumental figure, towering over the French music scene, yet remained a lonely, eccentric outsider, misunderstood by many. He stood firmly opposed to all emerging modern artistic movements, stubbornly defending the purity, dignity and solemn grace of classical traditional composition, making him appear outdated and out of step with the changing trends of his era. He openly criticized Debussy's impressionist style, dismissing its blurred, vague melodic textures as a sacrilege and insult to the true essence of art. Contemporary critics and younger musicians mocked him as an old-fashioned relic of the past, overlooking his deep-rooted, morbid obsession with artistic order and structural precision. His own life had once fallen into complete chaotic disarray and collapse, so he clung rigidly to strict formal structure and perfect balance within his compositions to grasp a fragile sense of inner security. He accumulated immense vast wealth throughout his long, successful career, yet donated nearly all his fortune to charitable institutions, scientific research funds and academic foundations. He remained alone and solitary for the rest of his life, accompanied only occasionally by a small loyal dog and a handful of devoted servants who could never truly step into the secluded depths of his inner soul. He began mentioning death frequently within his private diary entries, facing the inevitable end not with fear but with quiet resignation and relieved anticipation. In the cold, chilly winter of 1921, at the advanced age of 86, he journeyed once again to his beloved Algiers, the land that had given him so much quiet solace. He spent the final month of his life there, wandering along the seashore each day, sorting through piles of unfinished scholarly manuscripts covering astronomy, archaeology and philosophy. Late into the night on December 16, Saint-Saëns passed away peacefully in his sleep, with an astronomical report still resting beside his bedside. Following his passing, France honored him with a grand state funeral, a ceremony of unprecedented magnificent scale fit for burying a fallen king of a bygone era. Among his vast collection of brilliant timeless masterpieces, one short delicate piece stands apart from all the rest, the beloved classic The Swan. It was the only work he refused to publish publicly during his lifetime, simply because its tender, fragile, gentle spirit clashed sharply with the tough, erudite, stoic public image he had deliberately crafted for himself. Perhaps that solitary swan gliding smoothly across the still water perfectly mirrors the truest hidden side of Saint-Saëns' inner soul. Beneath the calm, graceful surface of the water, its feet paddle frantically and tirelessly, hidden from sight to maintain elegant poise, while underneath lay a broken, wounded heart that never truly healed. He spent a lifetime pursuing boundless knowledge to defend against the existential emptiness of fate, and endured decades of lonely wandering to flee the unbearable sorrow he could never face. The tale of Camille Saint-Saëns draws to its gentle quiet close tonight, his piano melodies still echoing softly in every corner of the world like a whispered voice traveling across 100 years. All the pain, grief and trauma that once kept him awake through countless sleepless nights have long transformed into starlight and flowing musical notes, soothing the dreams of every generation that comes after the world has fallen into perfect stillness. May you too find long-lost inner peace tonight, like that solitary swan gliding calmly beneath the soft glow of moonlight. Good night.